Welcome to this forum for general election candidates for Tacoma City Council Position 1. Council Districts 1 and 3 and at-large positions 7 and 8 are up for election this year. All are 4-year terms. The District 1 position is elected by the residents of Tacoma's District 1, but will serve the whole city once elected. The candidates are, in ballot order, John Hines and Nathe Lawver. The timekeeper is Susan Eidenschink, and she will enforce the timing rules so that each candidate is given the same amount of time to answer all of the same questions. The questions will be asked by and have been prepared by members of the Community and Neighborhood Councils of Tacoma and the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County. Candidates each have 1 minute for an opening statement, and we begin with John Hines.
Okay. Tacoma has big decisions in the next 4 years that are going to impact the next 4 decades. If we don't elect leaders that can bring the community together around making these big decisions, we'll never be the city we believe is our destiny. I believe I am that leader. I believe I have the experience, the creativity, and the attention to detail that's needed during this important time here in our city. I want to focus on keeping our community safe, delivering on core services, and investing in our city by really getting back to the basics here and focusing on what the city can do and doing it better. I believe if we do this, we can put our city on a path to prosperity and opportunity for everyone. So my name's John Hines, and I look forward to answering your questions as we go through the rest of this session.
Thank you. Nathe Lawver, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. I'm Nathe Lawver, and I'm working to earn your support for Tacoma City Council District 1. We must act now to address our community's affordability crisis. From homelessness to income inequality and stability for our seniors, everyone is impacted by increasing housing costs and stagnant wages. I'm running because I know that together we can do better. With my policy experience and work in our community, I'm uniquely qualified to tackle our most pressing issues, like housing affordability, maintaining and modernizing our infrastructure and using apprentices while we do that, and building a more robust mental health services system. If elected, I promise to continue our communications that we've had at the doors and in email and throughout this campaign. I look forward to earning your vote during this forum. Thank you.
Thank you both. We move on to questions. The questions will be asked by Ginny Eberhardt and Ken Kingsbury of the Community Council of Tacoma. If I don't specify otherwise, you will have 60 seconds to answer. The order of answering rotates with each question. Therefore, Nathe Lawver will answer the first question first, and Ginny Eberhardt will ask the question.
Good morning. What do you think is the greatest issue facing your district? What do you hope to see happen with that issue, and how will you work to achieve your desired outcomes?
The biggest issue that's facing District 1 right now, and it's common, I think, across the entire city, is the housing affordability. And we have a lot of new neighbors that have moved into our city over the last 10 years, and we have a whole bunch more that are moving in the next 20 years. And we need to prudently plan for the proper density along our transit corridors and make sure that these folks, that we have the housing available for them. And making sure that it's affordable, making sure that we have the jobs so that they can both live and work in Tacoma, and that they have access to adequate multimodal forms of transportation.
Thank you. John Hines.
Yes, I think as you move around the district, you'll hear many different issues that the neighbors will point to, but I think the one that I've heard the most common as I've been out is homelessness and housing, as my opponent mentioned. I think that we really need to make sure we have a clear plan to go ahead and address homelessness that includes services for people that are currently on the street, mental health services, drug and alcohol addiction services, housing, and then it wraps up into housing and getting people homes. So looking at investing more dollars into things like rapid rehousing, diversion, and hopefully standing up some more permanent supportive housing here in the community. I think that that's the concern I hear the most, and most people I talk to are pretty hopeful. They want to see the city step up and really help people, and I'm hoping when I get on the council I'll be able to kind of bring some partners together from across the city to really put a plan in place to really get more people homes and housed in our community.
Thank you. Ken Kingsbury, your question will go to John Hines first.
What is the greatest issue facing the city of Tacoma? What do you hope you and the council can achieve?
Okay. Well, I'll just wrap back around that I think that the biggest issue is also the one I'm hearing most frequently in the district, which is kind of homelessness and housing. And to go a little more detail about that, I think we need to look at expanding shelter services. Currently, we have a lot of people that are unhoused in our community, and we need to find them a place to be, at least temporarily, especially with winter coming and with some of the recent decisions the council's made about camping in the parks here. We need to rapidly increase shelter capacity. We also need to look at working with community partners to get services for people that are in those shelters to make sure we can find a way for them to transition out of the temporary shelters we're going to provide and into more permanent situations where they can stabilize, where they can get their mental health needs met, where they can find access to employment. And, you know, that also has to be connected with us building more housing here in our community, because we can't just look at temporary shelter. We have to look at more permanent options, and that's going to be building more housing, whether that's permanently subsidized housing like we're doing at the YWCA. I'm a board member of the YWCA, all the way up to just more housing being built throughout our city.
Thank you. Nathe Lawver.
Yes, housing. We have not been keeping up with new folks moving into our community. And so we're seeing the results of that. Finding innovative solutions, whether it's through different house sharing programs or community land trusts, or innovative ways that we can first and foremost develop more housing units. Second of all, while we're doing that, we also need to make sure that we're taking care of those that are unsheltered in our community, seeing to it that they do have the services that they need. We do some things really well in that department and cost effectively. We do a great job in Tacoma of diverting folks and saying, hey, last time you were homeless, this is what happened. Can we try that again? We also do a really good job with rapid rehousing. So I would look towards some more funding for rapid rehousing, as well as innovative ways to create more housing inventory.
Thank you. Ginny, please direct your question to Nathe Lawver first.
We're going to continue on the homeless situation. And so my question is, knowing that we have a lot of people who are homeless, living in cars or in tents, the city of Tacoma has, as of December 1st, made it an ordinance that the homeless people will no longer be able to sleep in our parks. So right now, not further down the road, but right now, what are your suggestions for temporary shelter? Where will these people be able to sleep? And what provisions should be made for the homeless?
So that's, there's a lot of different places we can look. We have some great partnerships within our community through the United Way and through our different church organizations that I could see us putting together a group to figure out, how can we best utilize some of those spaces that we have to see to it that folks are safe and in safe situations, in warm situations, especially as we come upon our early winter months here. It has always been, it is a struggle here because of the lack of the beds that we don't have in Tacoma, but we do have spaces that we could probably figure out to use so that folks can be safe and warm overnight.
Thank you. John Hines.
Yes, I think this is a crisis that also leads us to an opportunity to really step up as a community and really try to help the people that are in need. When we think about people no longer being able to camp and sleep in the parks, I think there are multiple things we can look at. We've talked about faith-based organizations, so churches that want to take on people and maybe host a tent city for a period of time would be something we need to look at and explore. There's lots of city-owned properties here in Tacoma that we could look at standing up some kind of temporary encampment or a temporary place for people to stay. I think what's important about that is we then are providing them services too. So that the idea is that while we're giving you a space to be, we're also providing you services to get you help so that this is not a permanent place for you. This is a temporary place on a path to more permanent housing. I also think we mentioned cars and RVs. You know, San Diego has done some really creative stuff around having a safe place for people to park their cars and RVs overnight where they can receive services. There's security that's provided for them. I think that's another way, and that brings people in. Because what we want to do is we want to bring people in, not push them out, and give them the services when we bring them in.
Thank you. John Hines will answer first. Ken.
Okay. We talk about affordable housing for a homeless person and those living in their cars. We need housing that is affordable for them. The definition of affordable housing is based on much higher incomes than homeless people have. We can and should, what can and should the city be doing to meet these needs, and how will you help?
So to give an example, I mentioned I'm on the YWCA board, and we're building a 54-unit quote-unquote homeless housing for people who make very little money, for women and or even men who are domestic violence survivors, because we found that women who are domestic violence survivors, that's almost been the most common cause for homelessness. To do that, it's required a lot of dollars from our city, our state, and our federal government. And so I think that when we look at providing housing for those in greatest need, with the lowest income and resources, it's going to require us working with the county and the state and nonprofits to get dollars to support that. The private market's not going to build those units. We're going to have to work closely with organizations to get that to happen. Currently, you know, most of downtown Tacoma and lots of parts of Tacoma are part of these quote-unquote opportunity zones. So we're going to see more federal dollars coming into the community, and I think we can channel that into building some of that permanently supportive or permanently affordable housing like we're doing at the YWCA.
Thank you. Nathe Lawver.
Thank you. Some of the solutions we can look at rely on some tweaks that we could do to state law, and those are a little bit further out there. Right now we can look at programs like community land trusts where the land is owned by the community, which would help drive down some of those costs for the purchasing of that land. And then as we go to develop that area, to look at how can we best utilize some incentives for the building materials and the labor costs on that site. I've been talking with some members of the construction community and saying, well, maybe we can find means to change how we work the labor costs when we go to build the housing portion of any mixed-use center as well. So there's a lot of ideas on the table, and I think that as we can come together, we can certainly find the best of those and apply those here in Tacoma.
Thank you. Okay, Nathe Lawver, you continue, and a question comes from Ginny.
We expect a lot from our city council members, and in their great wisdom, the city created and financially supports the Neighborhood Council program. How will you involve the neighborhood councils in creating and implementing your visions for the city of Tacoma?
So the Neighborhood Council program is an excellent venue for communicating with community members. I would like to see, what sort of improvements can we make in getting messages out there to the community. We tend to rely these days a lot on it's on the internet or on a website, and sometimes that doesn't help find people. There's a lot of information out there online. We also send postcards. How can we better engage the neighborhood councils in being truly representative of the neighborhood and making sure that we're reaching the voices that we need to hear through that system. So,
Thank you. John Hines.
Yeah, I see the neighborhood councils as a very valuable conduit to get information to city council members. It's one of the ways that I've kind of kept up on issues is being engaged with my North End neighborhood council and going to their meetings quite regularly. I think continuing to look at how we can support them in expanding and bringing more people into the neighborhood council, promoting the importance of the neighborhood council. I think if you have council members talking about them being a powerful voice or a good voice, which I hope to do, we can bring more people in and get more voices involved in those neighborhood councils. I think that, as my opponent mentioned, I think they're a great conduit for getting information out and sharing information, and I'd like to engage them with how we can best do that and help me, formulate policy. One thing about this campaign is I've been really aggressive about getting out and knocking on doors and talking to neighbors and really understanding what they think and making sure I'm grounded in that. I know that I represent a district, a part of Tacoma, and I really want to do that, and the neighborhood councils are a big piece of that, and making sure they're represented and part of my policy-making and decision-making process is important to me.
Thank you. John Hines, you will answer Ken Kingsbury's next question first.
Okay. Do you favor eliminating the 8-year multifamily property tax abatement, and why? Please include your understanding of this tax abatement.
Okay. So the idea is if you're building multifamily housing here in Tacoma, because that's what we want to see, or we need more housing, that if you have no affordable housing included at all, that you get an 8-year tax abatement on the residential improvements that are a part of it. If you include affordable housing, there's a 12-year tax credit. To get back to your question, I would be willing to examine places in our city where we might not use the 8-year tax exemption, where we already see housing growing and we may not need it. But my concern is if we completely eliminate it, there are parts of our city that need more housing that would just see nothing built, and it would actually counteract what we're hoping for. So my way to look at that would be looking at specific neighborhoods or places in our city where the buildings are being built, where they pencil out, where they can be built, and maybe examine areas where we get rid of the 8-year tax payment. But I don't believe we can throw it out wholesale because it will stifle building in other parts of our city.
Thank you. Nathe Lawver.
Thank you. I think when we look at the multifamily tax exemptions, we have to remember that they came out of the Growth Management Act as a way to encourage development. And originally it started out as a 10-year exemption, and then it was split into the 8 and 12-year exemptions that we have currently. The 8-year delaying the taxation of the improvements of the property for 8 years, and then the 12-year having a bit in there for affordable housing. At this point, given our current situation, all options need to remain on the table. I would not be supportive of eliminating of that at this time. Because of the crisis that we have, and it is an inventory crisis, and this is something that should be on the table so we can have all options there.
Thank you. Ginny Eberhardt, please direct your question to Nathe Lawver first.
Okay. Do you think that the growth in the police force has kept pace with the growth of the population of Tacoma? Should it? And if so, where does the funding come from?
In talking with my neighbors throughout the district, there is a request there for some more low-level enforcement when it comes to traffic violations, whether it's speeding or blowing through stop signs or things like that. And from that perspective, I happen to live on a quiet street, so getting that perspective was refreshing for me. And hearing their concerns, it's really brought to my attention that the police force hasn't kept up with the growth of Tacoma when it comes to things like speeding and traffic safety, and that we need to certainly look at ways that we might be able to do that so that we can have safe access to for pedestrians and other drivers.
Thank you. John Hines.
Yeah, it's a great question. I was just looking into this yesterday. So in 1998, we had 383 officers in the Tacoma, and our city was 185,000 people. In 2016, we have 216,000 residents, and we have 372 officers. So we've grown by 35,000 people and lost 11 commissioned officers in Tacoma. So I think that's a real issue. I hear concerns about speeding. We currently have 5 officers assigned to the traffic division. So when people tell me there's no one out giving speeding tickets in the community, they are correct. There are only 5 officers that are doing that right now. I think they're stretched thin, and I think we need to support them. Where the dollar is going to come from is a good question. We'll probably get to this, but I think we need to build our job base here in the city of Tacoma, get more B&O taxes here coming in. I hear a lot of property owners that are tax sensitive about how much we depend on property taxes. And so I think the piece that's missing is how do we continue to grow the pie, getting more businesses here in the city of Tacoma, which I hope we'll talk about soon. And then that can add more tax dollars that we can then use to pay for those police officers to keep up with the growth of our population.
Thank you. Ken Kingsbury, question to John Hines, please.
What are your planned strategies to communicate with constituents and incorporate their concerns and ensure the city hears their concerns?
That's another great question. So throughout my campaign, I'd like to say that I've knocked on 10,818 doors as of yesterday. So I'm out in the community, so that's something I want to continue when elected, is continuing to go out and meet residents on their doorstep. I have a pretty vibrant website, and I have a really clear way to communicate with me through that. I look forward to getting on the council and continue to have that clear communication. So whether it's social media, whether it's direct communication, my phone number is 253-426-3784. Please give me a call if you have any questions. I mean, that's the kind of transparency people would like, and that's what I hope to offer on the council. And I would hope that, one of the things I've been saying again and again is I'm running to represent District 1. So I want to represent the issues of my constituents. I recognize I'll serve at a citywide level, but I'm a district representative. So I would hope that listening to my constituents, I would be able to craft policy and be able to kind of use their opinions in formulating how I approach policy making on the council.
Thank you. Nathe Lawver.
Communication's the key to any successful representative, and I would look forward to continuing having the conversations at the doors with my neighbors on a regular basis. Having knocked on the doors of 11,234 voters so far this election cycle has brought in a good perspective for me, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do that. And offering opportunities for folks to meet in person. They are always welcome to contact me via email or phone, but also not just during the normal working day. There's a lot of hardworking women and men in the district that deserve to have a voice when they're able to do that, whether that's in the evening or on a Saturday morning when they're not working, so that we can certainly keep those communication lines open.
Thank you. This will be the last question. Nathe Lawver will answer it first, and the question will be asked by Jenny Eberhardt.
The Transportation Master Plan seeks to reduce automobile traffic downtown. Should the city be working to increase the use of alternatives to cars, and how do we do that?
The answer is yes. And we do that by the way that Tacoma's done so many innovative things, is that we bring folks together and have those conversations. The Washington Transportation Choices Coalition has some fantastic ideas on how to decrease that. Just speaking from personal experience, I've got a 17-year-old and 18-year-old. And they really don't have an interest in driving a car everywhere, and so they're finding the ways through buses and bicycling and walking and really making it happen. And I think we're going to be raising up some pretty great kids in this community that are going to be finding those alternatives.
Thank you. Mr. Hines.
Yes. I think the answer is yes. We'd like to see more people using transit, bikes, walking, scooters if you're a scooter fan. But the thing we also need to do is we have to connect where people live to where people work. So almost in any major metropolitan area you see out there, if the transit doesn't connect people from where they live to where they work, people don't use it. And so that's an important piece. So when we talk about reducing car trips downtown, we cannot neglect to talk about getting more jobs into downtown, getting more people working into downtown. Because right now, most of our car trips originate out of our Tacoma and out of the district. They drive from here to King County. And so they're not driving into downtown. So we need to get either people working there that they can take a bus. We need shops where people could go shopping there and they could take a bus, or they could ride their bike, or they could walk. But unless we're building downtown with things that are going to attract people and keep people and then connect it to where they live, it's not going to pay out to kind of reduce car trips, because people aren't driving there.
Thank you. Now you each have up to 1 minute for closing statement. Reversing our opening order, Nathe Lawver will make the first statement.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity for the league to put on this forum for us this morning. And I think the folks that are having the opportunity to watch this on TV Tacoma appreciate your time. I would like to ask you to just join our support for Better Tacoma. Join community leaders like Speaker of the House Lori Jenkins and Jake Fye, Congressman Derek Kilmer and Denny Heck, as well as Mayor Victoria Willards and Councilmember Anders Ibsen in our vision for a better Tacoma. Help us to build more affordable housing, help us to maintain and modernize our infrastructure while using apprentices to do that work, and help us to build a more robust mental health services system. I promise to continue working hard for you in this district, and I look forward to listening to your comments and your concerns. You can reach me anytime at 253-973-3765. Thank you.
Thank you. John Hines.
Yes, thank you again for this opportunity. As I said in the beginning, we have big decisions in the next 4 years are going to impact the next 4 decades in our city. And I think I've shown throughout this campaign that I've been committed to talking to neighbors and being influenced by the people I'm going to represent and really understanding their issues and making sure that's part of my campaign. That's something I want to continue. I look forward to representing this district well in the next 4 years and really helping move us forward in a wonderful way. My focus, again, is focusing on the basics, making sure the government's working in the ways that you hope it does, and that means being transparent, open, listening, and really making sure we focus on what we can do here in the city of Tacoma to make Tacoma a great place. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you to the candidates, Nathe Lawver and John Hines, for being here. They are candidates for City of Tacoma Council Position 1. You're watching because you're an engaged voter and are ensuring that your vote is an educated one. Now, please don't forget to use it. Election Day is November 5th. I also want to thank our questioners from the Community Council of Tacoma, the volunteers from the League of Women Voters of Tacoma-Pierce County, the wonderful crew from TV Tacoma, and our audience. Thank you all very much.